Good evening. This is CTV News for Thursday, May 15th. I'm Byron Scott.
And I'm Patricia Malone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Well, the Federal Communications Commission proposes new rules on net neutrality. The plan would let internet service providers charge content companies for faster and more reliable delivery of their traffic to users. But the proposal has come under fire from consumer advocates and technology companies. This morning, they staged a protest outside of FCC headquarters. More than 100 demonstrators rallied outside FCC headquarters this morning, concerned that the agency is trying to stop the flow of a free and open internet. The commission has come under fire for a proposal that would allow some commercial deals where content companies could pay broadband providers to prioritize traffic on their networks.
The internet that we've come to know and love, a place where we can freely exchange information, access whatever information, content, videos, whatever that we want, that could all go away if the big phone and cable companies get their way. They want to turn it into something that looks a lot more like cable television, where they decide what we get to watch. They decide what we get to pay extra for. You know, if they think that we should pay extra for Facebook, then they'll make that happen.
Critics worry that the plan would create a two-tiered system, one with fast lanes for companies that pay up and one with slower traffic for those who don't.
Do not create a highway where a toll highway where people who pay more get a faster speed than others who don't. It belongs to all of us.
There's folks that are fighting for environmental justice, people that are dealing with issues of war and peace, people that are organizing for racial justice, and every single one of those people and organizations recognizes that the platform to do that is the open internet, and that's why we want it protected.
Late this morning, the proposal passed the commission 3-2, largely along party lines. Consumer advocates plan to mobilize internet users with an online protest. They hope to convince the agency to reclassify internet providers as utilities, such as phone companies, rather than less regulated information services that they are today. That change is opposed by broadband companies and many Republicans. And the 5-member commission now begins the process of collecting public comments on the issue. Well, it has been 13 years in the making, the National September 11th Memorial Museum in New York City. And today, victims, relatives, survivors, rescuers, and dignitaries gathered at Ground Zero for the dedication ceremony. The new museum sits on the exact ground occupied by the Twin Towers and descends 7 stories down. Voices of 9/11 victims and survivors greet visitors as they tour exhibits, including a mangled fire truck and a memorial wall with photos of those who died. Speakers included former Mayor Michael Bloomberg and President Barack Obama, who told guests, "Nothing can ever break us, nothing can change who we are as Americans."
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
In the years to come, the 9/11 Memorial Museum will take its place alongside the fields of Gettysburg, the waters of Pearl Harbor, and the Vietnam Veterans Memorial as a sacred marker of our past and as a solemn gathering place. A place we come to remember those who died and to honor acts of courage and compassion.
I want to express our deep gratitude to everybody who was involved in this great undertaking, for bringing us to this day, for giving us this sacred place of healing and of hope.
I once was lost, but now I'm found.
And the museum officially opens to the public on May 21st.
And closer to home, it was bill signing day in Annapolis, where dozens of measures were signed into law. This was the scene at the State House earlier. Governor Martin O'Malley put his signature on a host of bills passed by the legislature, some controversial, some not. Among them, Senate Bill 212, the Fairness for All Marylanders Act, which prohibits discrimination against transgender people related to housing, employment credit, and the use of public facilities.
It was amazing. The crowd that turned out were people who have been working on this for over a decade. Transgender people, allies, faith leaders, community leaders from all across the board have been building up the support and working to educate lawmakers for over a decade to show how needed this bill is and how important it is that Maryland sends the message that discrimination will not be tolerated.
The law takes effect October 1st. Another measure signed into law could mean public school children get an extra hour of sleep. It calls on the State Department of Public Health and Mental Hygiene to study the impact on school hours and to whether they ought to start earlier.
The critical health issue that happens when we start students so early. Right now, it's equivalent to shift work. When we ask a high school student to wake up at 5:30 in the morning, that's really like asking an adult to wake up at 2:30 in the morning, which is shift work. And that's been documented time and again to cause health problems. It creates obesity, suicidal ideation, depression, a whole risky behaviors, a whole host of things. And
The health department must complete its report by the end of the year. And Prince George's county leaders are weighing whether to ask voters to change a law limiting elected officials to 2 consecutive terms in office. After instituting the law through referendum in 1992, a citizen-appointed commission is recommending that the issue be put on the November ballot. The county council must decide by the end of July whether to send a measure to voters that would limit repeal, or members could choose not to act at all. The term limit supporters say they are needed to prevent incumbents from becoming beholden to campaign donors. Opponents like County Executive Asherim Baker say they disrupt the legislative process.
The Charter Review Commission sent down to the council recommendation to extend the terms, I believe, from 2 terms to 3 terms. My history in term limits is pretty well known. I don't support term limits. I didn't when I was in a legislative body. I think there's a term limit every election. The voters get to decide on how long people stay and how long they go. But it's going to be,
While Anne Arundel, St. Mary's, and Howard counties set limits for elected leaders, Prince George's is the only jurisdiction in the D.C. area to oppose them.
And the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers announces its endorsement of Attorney General Doug Gansler for Maryland governor. With 7,500 members in the metro area, it's one of the largest locals in the country. Gansler says he's excited to have the support of the largest construction trade union in the state. IBEW business manager Charles Graham says Gansler and running mate Jolene Ivey are, quote, great Democrats for organized labor and great Democrats for working families.
Time and time again, Doug and Jolene have shown us, not just in words, but in action, their respect for working men and women, and particularly those in organized labor.
It's all about relationships. I've been working with union and labor for the last 16 years. In the last 8 years, in particular, I started something called the Attorney General Labor Council, and IBEW has been an integral part of that in dealing with issues that affect state government in terms of labor, but also legislative issues. The other piece that is monumental for us is, for about a year now, we've been talking about a vocational and career apprenticeship program for all Marylanders, so that when you're 16 years old, if you choose to stay on the traditional education path, you may do so. But if you want to get a job, let's say you want to be an electrician, it takes 10,000 hours to be certified as an electrician in Maryland. You would do your math and your English in the morning. In the afternoon, you would do an apprenticeship with, say, IBEW. And so that when you're 18, you now graduate with a diploma as well as a certification for a job.
And Gansler is running against Lieutenant Governor Anthony Brown and Delegate Heather Mazier in the June Democratic primary election. And you're watching CTV News. I'm Patricia Vallone.
And I'm Byron